you'd have told me, let's see, we picked him on Saturday, right? Friday night driving home, y'all are going to pick Shedeur. I would say that's not happening. But we had a conversation early that morning, and then we had a conversation later that day. I think we had the right people involved in the conversation. At the end of the day, that's Andrew Berry's call. Andrew made the call to pick Shedeur. Just like who's going to start or what play we're going to call is Kevin's call. But
Jimmy Haslam never wanted Shedeur Sanders on his Cleveland Browns roster. He said it himself. If you told him they were drafting Sanders, he would have said, that's not happening. But here's the twist that's sending shockwaves through the NFL. That same fifth-round rookie Haslam didn't want is now generating revenue numbers that are rewriting football history and making the billionaire owner look like an accidental genius. Sanders ranks first among NFL rookies for merchandise sales, according to data from Fanatics that tracks sales of jerseys and other apparel from its network of sites, including NFL Shop. And since the draft, he's been a top 10 selling player among all NFL players, outselling Pro Bowl veterans and first-round superstars. His personal merchandise line sold out instantly. His jerseys are flying off shelves faster than the Browns can restock them, and the revenue he's generating for Haslam's franchise is reaching numbers that would make even the most successful NFL owners jealous. But this story gets even more explosive when you realize what's really happening here. A billionaire businessman who built an $8.5 billion empire is now cashing in on a player he publicly admitted he didn't want to draft. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications because this controversy exposes everything about money, power, and exploitation in the modern NFL. Let's start with the man at the center of this controversy, Jimmy Haslam, the billionaire owner of the Cleveland Browns, who's become one of the most polarizing figures in professional sports. Haslam made his fortune building Pilot Flying J, a truck stop and convenience store empire that's now valued at over $8 billion. He purchased the Browns in 2012 for just over $1 billion, and since then, his tenure has been defined by chaos, dysfunction, and an endless parade of failed quarterback experiments. But here's where the story takes its first shocking turn. Just months ago, during an interview, Haslam made a stunning admission about Shedeur Sanders. He said that if someone had told him the Browns were going to draft Sanders, his response would have been, that's not happening. Think about that for a second. The owner of an NFL franchise publicly admitted he didn't want the player who would eventually become his team's starting quarterback and biggest revenue generator of the season. Why didn't Haslam want Sanders? The reasons were typical of NFL ownership skepticism. Sanders fell to the fifth round, which meant 30-plus teams passed on him multiple times. Scouts questioned his arm strength. Critics said he was only relevant because of his father's name recognition. And Haslam, who'd already invested a guaranteed $230 million in Deshaun Watson, one of the worst contracts in NFL history, probably didn't see the value in using even a fifth-round pick on another quarterback when they already had what they thought was their franchise solution. But Andrew Berry, Cleveland's general manager, saw something different. Berry pushed for the Sanders pick despite ownership's hesitation. The Browns took Sanders in the fifth round, and Haslam's public comments suggest he wasn't thrilled about the decision. It was a drafting decision made by football people over the objections of the billionaire businessman who signs the checks. Fast forward to today, and Shedeur Sanders has become the most unexpected phenomenon in the entire NFL. Not just because of his on-field performance, but because of the absolutely unprecedented revenue he's generating for the Cleveland Browns organization and for Jimmy Haslam's bottom line. The numbers are genuinely staggering. Shedeur Sanders ranks first among all NFL rookies in merchandise sales according to Fanatics, the company that tracks jersey and apparel sales across all major retail platforms, including NFL Shop. But here's what makes this even more remarkable. Sanders isn't just leading rookies. He's consistently been a top 10 selling player among all NFL players since the draft, outselling established superstars, Pro Bowl veterans, and first-round picks who were supposed to be the faces of their franchises. Think about what that means. Patrick Mahomes, the three-time Super Bowl champion. C.J. Stroud, last year's Offensive Rookie of the Year who was a top to pick. Caleb Williams, the #1 overall pick who went to Chicago. Jaden Daniels, the Heisman Trophy winner drafted 2nd overall. Shedeur Sanders, a 5th-round pick that his own owner didn't want, is outselling all of them in merchandise revenue. His personal merchandise line, which launched shortly after he was drafted, sold out within hours. Browns jerseys with Sanders' name and number became the hottest commodity in Cleveland sports retail. Fans who hadn't bought Browns merchandise in years suddenly flooded stores and online shops, desperate to get anything with Shedeur Sanders' name on it. Retailers reported that Sanders jerseys were selling faster than they could restock them, with waiting lists stretching weeks into the future. And here's the part that makes this story absolutely explosive. Jimmy Haslam, the billionaire who didn't want Sanders on his roster, is now profiting enormously from a player he tried to prevent from being drafted. Every jersey sold generates revenue that goes directly into Haslam's organization. Every piece of merchandise, every hat, every shirt, every collectible item with Sanders' name creates profit margins that boost the Browns' bottom line and increase the franchise's overall valuation. The financial implications are staggering when you actually break down the numbers. NFL merchandise revenue is shared among all teams, but teams get a larger percentage from sales of their own players' jerseys and gear, with Sanders generating top 10 sales numbers across the entire league. The Browns are receiving a disproportionate share of the revenue compared to other franchises. That money flows directly into Haslam's organization, padding profit margins that were already healthy from television contracts, ticket sales, and sponsorship deals. But the revenue story goes even deeper than merchandise. Sanders' presence has created renewed national interest in the Cleveland Browns. Television ratings for Browns games have increased when Sanders is playing. Social media engagement has skyrocketed. Media coverage has intensified. All of that attention translates into higher franchise valuation, better sponsorship deals, and increased leverage when negotiating with corporate partners who want to associate their brands with the NFL's most compelling rookie. Story. Industry analysts who track NFL franchise valuations have suggested that Sanders' impact on the Browns brand could be worth tens of millions of dollars in increased franchise value over time. When Forbes and other financial publications calculate team values, they factor in brand strength, fan engagement, merchandise sales, and media attention. Sanders is boosting all of those metrics simultaneously, which means Haslam's investment in the Browns is becoming more valuable because of a player he publicly admitted he didn't want. The irony is absolutely brutal. Haslam spent $230 million guaranteed dollars on Deshaun Watson, a quarterback who's been a complete disaster on and off the field. That contract has been called one of the worst in NFL history. A catastrophic investment that's handicapped Cleveland's salary cap flexibility and delivered almost nothing in terms of on-field success or off-field revenue generation. Watson doesn't sell jerseys. Watson doesn't generate positive media attention. Watson doesn't increase franchise value. He's been a financial and football disaster. But Shedeur Sanders, the 5th-round pick that cost Cleveland almost nothing in draft capital and carries a rookie salary, that's a fraction of what they're paying Watson, is generating more revenue and more positive attention than any Browns player in recent memory. He's doing everything Watson was supposed to do, creating excitement, selling merchandise, building the brand, except Sanders is doing it at a tiny fraction of the cost. Now we need to talk about what's really happening here, because this isn't just a feel-good story about an underdog rookie exceeding expectations. This is about power, exploitation, and how billionaire owners profit from young athletes while controlling every aspect of their earning potential. And Shedeur Sanders' situation with Jimmy Haslam exposes the ugly truth about that system. Let's talk about what Sanders is actually earning compared to what he's generating. As a fifth-round draft pick, Sanders signed a 4-year contract worth approximately $3.8 million, with a signing bonus of around $200,000. His base salary for his rookie season is less than $1 million. That's what Jimmy Haslam is paying Shedeur Sanders to be the face of his franchise, to generate top 10 merchandise sales across the entire NFL, and to create millions of dollars in additional revenue through increased brand value and media attention. Now compare that to what Sanders is actually worth on the open market. If Sanders were a free agent who could negotiate his own contract based on his revenue generation and brand value, he'd be commanding tens of millions of dollars annually. His merchandise sales alone prove that he has more market value than most veteran players in the league. But because of the NFL's rookie wage scale, because of the collective bargaining agreement that limits what young players can earn, Shedeur Sanders is locked into a contract that pays him a fraction of what he's actually generating. For Haslam's organization, this is the fundamental exploitation at the heart of the NFL's economic system. Owners like Jimmy Haslam, who's worth billions, get to profit enormously from rookie players who have zero negotiating power. Sanders can't demand a raise. He can't renegotiate his contract. He can't take his talents to another team that would pay him fairly. He's locked into a rookie deal that pays him less than $1 million while he generates revenue that's worth exponentially more to the franchise. And here's what makes this situation even more morally complicated. Haslam didn't even want Sanders on his roster. He publicly admitted that if someone told him the Browns were drafting Sanders, he would have said that's not happening. But now that Sanders is accidentally making him richer, Haslam is perfectly happy to cash the checks and collect the profits, while paying Sanders rookie-scale wages that don't come close to reflecting his actual value. The merchandise numbers tell the full story of this exploitation. Industry experts estimate that top 10 selling NFL players generate millions of dollars annually in merchandise revenue. While the exact figures aren't public because the NFL and Fanatics don't release detailed financial breakdowns, analysts suggest that jersey sales alone for a top 10 player can generate between $5 and $15 million in annual revenue when you factor in all retail channels, licensing deals, and international sales. Shedeur Sanders is getting a tiny fraction of the revenue. The NFL's collective bargaining agreement gives players a percentage of merchandise sales, but that percentage is pooled and distributed among all players, which means Sanders doesn't get a direct cut of his own jersey sales. He gets the same share as every other player in the league, regardless of whether he's selling 10 times more merchandise than them. The vast majority of the revenue goes to the teams, the league, and to retailers. Jimmy Haslam's Browns organization is capturing most of the value that Sanders creates. But it gets even worse when you consider endorsement and sponsorship opportunities. Sanders has leveraged his NFL platform to secure some personal endorsement deals, but his earning potential is limited by time constraints, NFL rules, and the fact that he's playing for a struggling franchise in a market that doesn't maximize his brand value. If Sanders were playing in a major market like New York, Los Angeles, or Dallas, his endorsement opportunities would be exponentially larger. Instead, he's in Cleveland, generating enormous revenue for Haslam while his own earning potential is constrained by geography and market dynamics. The name, image, and likeness era in college football actually gave Sanders more control over his earning potential than he has now in the NFL. To Colorado, playing for his father Deion Sanders, Shedeur had NIL deals worth millions of dollars. He controlled his own brand. He negotiated his own partnerships. He kept the revenue he generated. But the moment he entered the NFL draft, all of that autonomy disappeared. Now he's subject to the league's collective bargaining agreement, the rookie wage scale, and a system designed to maximize profits for billionaire owners at the expense of young players. And Jimmy Haslam is the perfect symbol of everything wrong with this system. He is a billionaire who made his fortune in the truck stop business, who purchased the Browns as a vanity project and status symbol, who's overseen a decade of organizational dysfunction and catastrophic personnel decisions. He publicly admitted he didn't want Sanders. He was wrong about Sanders' value, and now he's profiting enormously from that mistake while Sanders makes less than $1 million. The broader implications of this situation extend far beyond just Sanders and Haslam. This exposes how NFL owners have structured a system that allows them to extract maximum value from young players while paying them minimum wages. The rookie wage scale was implemented ostensibly to prevent teams from overpaying unproven players. But in practice, it's become a mechanism for billionaire owners to underpay the most marketable and valuable young athletes in the league. Think about what would happen if the NFL had a truly free market for rookie contracts. If Shedeur Sanders could negotiate based on his actual market value based on his merchandise sales, his brand recognition, his revenue generation, he'd be earning tens of millions of dollars right now. Teams would be bidding against each other for his services. He'd have leverage to demand fair compensation. But that system doesn't exist because owners like Haslam have negotiated a collective bargaining agreement that strips rookies of negotiating power and locks them into below market contracts. The exploitation becomes even more obvious when you consider the risk Sanders is taking. Every time he steps on the field, he's risking catastrophic injury that could end his career instantly. We've already seen him suffer a brutal hand injury that required stitches and could have derailed his entire season. If Sanders suffers a career-ending injury tomorrow, he'll have earned less than $1 million from the NFL despite generating millions in revenue. For Haslam's franchise, there's no safety net, no guaranteed long-term security, no compensation for the value he has already created. Meanwhile, Jimmy Haslam faces zero risk. If Sanders gets injured, Haslam still owns the Browns. The franchise value doesn't disappear. The television revenue keeps flowing. The sponsorship deals remain intact. Haslam's billions stay secure. The entire risk falls on Sanders, while the vast majority of the reward flows to Haslam. That's not a fair economic relationship, it's exploitation dressed up as professional sports. But here's the most infuriating part of this entire situation. Haslam will never publicly acknowledge any of this. He'll never admit that he's profiting enormously from a player he didn't want. He'll never concede that Sanders is criminally underpaid relative to his value. He'll just continue cashing checks, watching his franchise valuation increase, and benefiting from a system that's designed to protect billionaire owners at the expense of the athletes who actually generate the revenue. Shedeur Sanders deserves better. He deserves to be paid what he's actually worth. He deserves to capture a fair share of the revenue he's generating. He deserves to have negotiating power and economic leverage. But the NFL system denies him all of that, and Jimmy Haslam is the primary beneficiary of the denial. This is the reality of modern professional football. Billionaire owners who didn't even want certain players on their rosters end up profiting enormously from those players' success, while the athletes themselves get paid a fraction of their actual value and assume all the physical risk. That's not capitalism. That's not a free market. That's a rigged system designed to transfer wealth from young athletes to billionaire owners who've structured the rules to guarantee their profits, regardless of their own competence or decision-making. Now it's your turn to weigh in on this explosive situation, because this goes far beyond just one player and one owner. First question, is the NFL's rookie wage scale fundamentally exploitative? Or is it necessary to prevent teams from making catastrophic financial decisions on unproven players? Second question, should Shedeur Sanders be able to renegotiate his contract immediately, based on his merchandise sales and revenue generation? Or should he have to wait until his rookie deal expires? Third question, does Jimmy Haslam owe Sanders any acknowledgement or additional compensation for being wrong about his value? Or is this just standard business in professional sports? And finally, if you were Shedeur Sanders, would you resent being massively underpaid while generating millions for a billionaire? who didn't even want you on his team? Or would you view it as motivation to reach free agency and get paid fairly? Drop your answers in the comments right now. Smash the like button if you think the NFL's economic system is rigged against young players. Subscribe and turn on notifications because we're going to continue exposing the financial exploitation that happens behind the scenes in professional sports. This channel is dedicated to telling the uncomfortable truths the mainstream sports media refuses to address. We're not here to celebrate billionaire owners or pretend that the NFL's economic system is fair. We're here to expose exploitation, demand accountability, and advocate for athletes who deserve to be paid what they're actually worth. Stay locked in. Keep fighting for economic justice in sports. And let's continue this conversation about who really benefits from the NFL's billion-dollar business model.